Alright guys, today is a lesson on unit conversions. I've noticed some of us are trying to make some conversions in volume and area particularly and getting them wrong. And that's just because you don't really have that intuitive understanding of how the volumes and areas convert between one another. So what I thought I'd do is I'll start with one-dimensional unit conversions. So one dimension pretty much is just the definition of a length from one point to another. And this is all in the metric system. So if we had 1 meter, a meter, then we realized that, well, the metric system is this beautiful system which would mean we could separate that into 1,000 parts. So 1,000 millimeters or 100 centimeters. And we've gone through this conversion before. So if I had a meter, then I just multiply by 1,000 and it'll tell me how many millimeters. So if that was 1 meter, then multiply 1 by 1,000, tells you that there's 1,000 millimeters in it. And it's pretty similar. If that was a kilometer, well, then there would be 1,000 meters in that kilometer. And the reason I put a centimeter on a different one is because it's not thousands, it's hundreds. So if we went from meters to centimeters, we would times by 100. And so I've gone through this before. If you wanted to go back, if you had 1,000 millimeters, well, if you divided 1,000 by 1,000, you would be told how many meters are in that measurement. So if we're going back, it's divide by 1,000. If we're going back, it is divide by 1,000. If we're going back from centimeters, it's divide by 100. And so that is how we convert our one-dimensional unit conversions. So that's pretty simple. Let's have a look at what happens when it's 2 dimensions, when it's unit conversion with area. Let's say we have a 1 meter by 1 meter square. Well, that's the same as saying that it's 1,000 millimeters by 1,000 millimeters, isn't it? So that's just me using the prior dimension conversions there. So what I'm doing is I'm using each dimension to build up conversions into the next. And this is also 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. So these 3 lengths are all the same. So let's have a look at what it's going to look like when we calculate the area. So meter squared, that's 1 meter squared. Well, let's have a look at how many centimeters squared that is. So that would be 100 centimeters along the bottom. So think about having 100 centimeters this way. And then there's going to be 100 of those 100 centimeters going up. So it's 100 by 100. So what is that on our calculator? 100 times 100 is 10,000. So a meter squared is 100 square centimeters squared, isn't it? And that is a meter squared is, well, if we were doing millimeters squared, well, that's 1,000 times 1,000. So it's 1,000 squared. So let's just copy that last conversion diagram, times by 1,000, times by 1,000, times by 100. And then if you're going back, you would divide by 100, you would divide by 1,000 for the millimeters, you would divide by 1,000 for kilometers. This is all from the meters. Now, that was for 1 dimension, but what have we noticed is happening in 2 dimension? Well, a meter squared is actually 10,000 centimeters squared. So what have I actually had to times by meters squared by? I've had to times them by 10,000, which is 100 squared. So if I want to go back, I divide by 100 squared. Let's have a look at it in millimeters. 1 meter squared is 1000 by 1000, or 1000 squared. So if I wanted to go from meters squared to millimeters squared, I have to times by 1000 squared. And going from millimeters squared to 1000, millimeters squared to meters squared, I would have to do the opposite. I have to divide by 1000 squared. Interesting. So, and that's also the side note that a hectare is 10,000 meters squared, because a hectare is 100 meters by 100 meters. So a hectare is a metric area measurement, whereas acre is imperial. It's to do with yards and weird imperial stuff like that. So that's the two-dimensional unit conversions. Notice has anything actually changed? Well, now we're just in 2 dimensions, so we're having to times and divide by these measurements squared. And I think you can understand now what's going to happen with the volume. So let's say this is a meter by a meter by a meter. Well, then that's 1000 millimeters, 1000 millimeters by 1000 millimeters. So 1 meter cubed is going to be 1000 times 1000 times 1000 millimeters cubed. 1000 times 1000 times 1000 is 1000 cubed. So we're going to have, and what is that? 1000 to the 3. Well, I've got 1000, 1 million, 1 billion. It's 1 billion, right? That is 1 followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 millimeters cubed. So instead of us going, well, 1 meter cubed is, we times by 1 billion, I'm just going to have, we still times by 1000, but we're now cubing it, because there's 3 dimensions we have to account for in that conversion. And so the return is divide by 1000 cubed, and so it will be the same with the kilometers, won't it? And in centimeters, you're probably going to be able to see this quite easily now. 100 centimeters, 100 centimeters, 100 centimeters. So 1 meter cubed is going to be 100 times 100 times 100, or 1 million centimeters cubed. So that was 100 cubed, wasn't it? So there's our times by 100 cubed, and that going back, we would have to divide by 100 cubed. So that is how you do that unit conversion. All right. So let's have a look at. So what we also know is a centimeter cubed of water is 1 mil, which is 1 gram. So 1 meter cubed, which we said was, what was that? That was 1 million centimeters cubed. 1 million centimeters cubed, which would be 1 million mils, which would be 1,000 litres, and that would weigh 1,000 kg, which would equal 1 tonne. 2 ends, isn't it? So a meter cubed of water. So maybe you might want to just, your bathtub's probably about a meter cubed. It would weigh, actually, no, it's not. Those big white water tanks on farms, they're about a meter by a meter by a meter. They would weigh 1 tonne. Okay, your bath would probably be a tenth of a ton, probably weigh 100 kilos if you filled up your bath. So that is the metric system in a nutshell. It's really quite nice. So let's have a look at some of these unit conversions. If I had 3 meters cubed, how many centimeters cubed would that be? Well, I'm in 3 dimensions. I'm looking at volume and I want to convert that. Well, if I was in 1 dimension, I would take 3 and I times by 100, because for every meter there's 100 centimeters. But I'm in 3 dimension, so I times by 100 cubed. And so I have 3 million centimeters cubed. If I had, let's say, 4.5 kilometers squared, and I wanted that in meters squared, well, I know that for every kilometer is 1,000, so 4.5 times 1,000, but I'm in area, so that's actually squared. So that should be, what have we got? 4,500,000 meters squared. And I'll do a conversion going backwards. What if we had, let's say, 150,000 millimeters cubed. And I want that in meters cubed. Meters cubed. Well, for every 1,000 millimeters, there's a meter. So we get 150,000 divide by 1,000. If I want to go from millimeters to meters, I need to bring my decimal count down. But I'm looking at volume, I'm looking at space, so I have to raise that to the 3rd power, and that's scientific notation. So I'm gonna get, I need more room. I've got 0.00015 meters cubed. Right, so that's not actually a very large volume, is it? So that's us for converting some of those metric units. Hopefully that makes sense, and I'll leave you with this quote from John Bazile. In metric, 1 milliliter of water occupies 1 cubic centimeter, weighs 1 gram, and requires 1 calorie of energy to heat up by 1 degree centigrade, which is 1% of the difference between its freezing point and its boiling point. And that is the metric system in a nutshell. It is so nice to work with.